Again, to get a mental image of how fractions work together, do mental approximations, we've got to be able to visualize fractions somehow. So it all comes down to that visualization, that representation of fractions. And I'm at the Math Learning Center and their fractions app here, which is this free tool online. If you haven't been to the Math Learning Center, definitely check it out. They've got a ton of resources for teachers and students, and I'm checking out their apps page. And again, it's all awesome free stuff for all kinds of math, mostly aimed at young kids. So this is their fractions app. So the fractions app, you can bring up this fraction bar and decide how many parts you want it to have. So let's say I'm going to put 6 parts in that bar. I'm just going to choose OK there. And I'm going to add another fraction bar. And this one, I'm going to put, let's do 10 in this one. And OK. When it first brings it up, there's nothing shaded, and they're the same length, although I can grab the arrows and resize them if I want. But I want them to be the same length. And then to make fractions, I then pick a color down here, like let's say it's going to pick yellow automatically. And then once I'm on color, I can start clicking to select pieces, and they don't have to be together. And it tells me that I've shaded 4/6 of the bar. And you can turn these on and off by just clicking on them again. So I'm going to put 4/6 together like that. And then I can compare that. How does 4/6 compare to like 6/10? And you can shade with the same color or a different color. It's up to you. I'm going to pick a different color for fun. So now I have them all shaded green, and that was 7/10. This one is 6/10. So I can see 4/6 is a little bigger than 6/10. And somebody might say, well, isn't 4/6 2/3? And so we can say, well, let's just double check that. So we can bring up a thirds bar, stick that on top there, and it tries to line them up for you too. And I can pick a color, same or a different color. You can see, oh yeah, 2/3 and 4/6 are the same, and they're both a little bigger than 6/10. And someone might say, well, can't you write 6/10 in fifths? Can I? I think so. Let's try. So it's just this fun tool to play with. Now, my preference would be to not have the kids play with this tool, but to have something that they can hold on to play with. And so I would prefer in the classroom to have a set of the color rods. Or a lot of times you can buy what are called color strips, which are pre-designed things like this. I have an example of fraction strips here. And so this could be a printout that kids have to play with. You could color it for fun. I borrowed this from, where did I get this one? Some California educational group published this, and I just borrowed their version of it. And it's just a nice thing to get used to how different fractions compare to one another, halves, thirds, fourths, and so on. And so this and a ruler is nice. Often what we'll do is we'll have these cut out. So we'll cut out each row so you can line up 11ths with 6ths and see how they compare. And so ideally, I think it's better to have things the kids can hold in their hands, but there are more and more groups that are putting these applications out on computers. But I have a mixed opinion on how much we should make little kids play with computers. I think we should try and minimize that wherever possible. Just my opinion on that. As wonderful and useful as computers are, but those are 2 fun apps. And again, other visualizations I've mentioned before for fractions that I like are color rods. And again, preference would be to have a real set that kids can hold on to and play with. A lot of school districts have these, or they have an educational service district you can check them out through. And pattern blocks are one of my other favorites. And again, like I mentioned before, just drawing fractions is super important. So let's make a quick drawing. Idea of representation. So how do people learn to do mental calculations with fractions? They have some visualization and of fractions in their head. And a great way to visualize fractions is to draw them or have some kind of toy to play with. So if I want to compare a couple of fractions, let's compare 3/4 to 4/5. How do these two fractions compare? And my recommendation for drawing is squares or rectangles are easier to draw. Square's not so square. Let's see if I can do better. That's a little better. And I'm going to make my best duplicate of that over here. And the grid definitely helps. That's not quite square, is it? It is a rectangle instead of a square. That's okay. And so then I just want to keep splitting it up. And again, rulers with kids can help. So I happen to have fourths going this way. So 1, 2, 3, that's my best ruler without the ruler. And shade those suckers in. And then for the other one, I've got my fifths going this way. And some shading on those. And sometimes more pieces is more, but these pieces are bigger. So it's kind of like, which one is more? I'm pretty sure the 4/5 is more, but not just because it has more pieces. The leftover seems less. And the way to just double check that is to cut each like the other. So then I'll cut the fifths also in fourths in the other direction, and the fourths and fifths in the other direction. And then once I do that, I can see, oh, here I have 5/3 shaded. So 15 of them are shaded out of a 5/4 or 20 grid, versus this one over here has 4/4 shaded, which is 16 out of 20. So it's just a little tiny bit bigger, 1/20th bigger is the 4/5. So there's no question now, 3/4 is less than 4/5, or 4/5 is greater than 3/4. So that visualization is nice. Sometimes the visualization has to be played with a little bit to get it to work out.